I've been making repair and build videos for a long time now, and a question I get asked now and then is, are any of these for sale? The answer's always been no, but recently I started thinking, there are a lot of used, broken, and unbuilt trains out there, so what if I start buying, building, and repairing those specifically to sell? Well, I decided to go ahead and buy a bunch from wherever I can find them, and for those videos where I repair those trains, I'm starting a new series called Darth's Train Shop, and for those videos, you'll see this picture in the video thumbnail, and you'll see a before image of the model to be repaired inside of that. And then at the end of the video, I'll put the repaired model up for sale. And for my first video in this new series, I'm going to be repairing every single model that you see on this table right here. So there are 8 powered F units in that collection, so I'm just going to start with this Varney one here. This is one of their late model F3s with a plastic body instead of metal. So it looks like it hasn't been run for quite a while. It has quite a bit of dirt and grease in there. So I'm just going to take the shell off of there. I think that's held on by that one screw. Yes, it is. So this does have a Pitman motor. Looks like I think that's a DC-70. A little smaller than a DC-71. Okay, that drops off of there. So I'm just going to unsolder this wire real quick. Now, how to get into this. See, I think I do have to spread out the side frames. Yeah, there we go. That came off easy enough. Brush out a little bit of stuff. So it looks like the axles don't come out without actually pulling a wheel, but I can at least get the worm shaft out by taking off this snap ring from the look of it. And that seems to be made from plastic. Yeah, now that just pulls out from there. So it is a fully nylon shaft, which just fits through the die-cast truck, which acts as the bearings. That motor's still in really good shape, so I just gave it a quick cleaning and oiling. Runs good as new. I also pulled the plastic wheels off of here so that I could move things around a little and get it a bit cleaner. Tightened up the contacts for the wheels. Get this swivel plate lined up on here. It turns on a little post on the top of the truck. Line this up with the motor. Make sure that's on there nice and tight. Slide this back in. Snap the ring back in place. That looks like it's going to work just fine. Now if that's good, I'll just add some fresh oil all over. Got fresh grease running through. Just taking some excess off, because a lot of it is going to fly out anyway. I think that'll be enough. Now that I know those side frames just pop off, it makes it a lot easier to remove the rest of these parts. This definitely needs some lint brushed out. And I'll just give this the same cleaning that I did for the power truck. Okay, chassis back together. Seems to be working fine. So I'm just going to give the wheels a quick cleaning now. Power up the motor. I'm just going to use my Bright Boy block, at least for the main stuff. Now to really finish those up, got a buffing wheel with a bit of compound on it. That just gives the wheels a really, really nice shine on the tread. Off it goes. That works nice and smooth too. Gave the shell a quick cleaning with some soap and water. Looks nice, it's still in good condition. Now to get that back on, first I'll stick the screw through the chassis, drop this on here, and place the shell on top, and tighten the screw down. Well, a new wire and a little bit of tuning here and there later, and this is running pretty nice. The electrical pickup is a little flaky, but overall, it's not bad. So that's one down, and the rest to go. Now, next up is an Athearn geared F7, and this looks like one of the earlier versions from just after they had switched these over from the Globe branding. So I'll just get that shell off of there. That's the early superweight system. Just two pieces of metal dropped in place. And then the plastic tower gear drive and the rubber band drive motor, but flipped upside down. Let's just check real quick and see how this is working. Wants to turn, but it's struggling. Okay, I don't think this one will need too much work. So I'll start by taking the motor out. So first thing to do is just pull out these clipped in wires. Let's see, and then there's a screwed in wire over here for the headlight. There goes the light bulb too, it just dropped out. One screw holds the motor in place. And there it is. Let's see if this works. I hooked up another motor with a piece of drive tubing, so that will turn the commutator. While that's turning, I'll just take my buffing wheel, just gently clean that up. That's much better. Oh yeah, that starts up much better. It's down to about 2.5 volts from 5. This will make it a much stronger runner. Now to get the trucks off, squeeze these clips, pull off, take this off too, and the truck drops right out. Okay, so there's the top gear, and the worm shaft, and then the axles are a similar design to what they're using now, but the gear teeth have a much finer pitch to them, and they're helical to match up with the worms better. But they still use the same type of half axles, so that'll make it easy to clean these up separate from the gear. These gears are all completely dry and clean already, so I guess I don't even have to bother with cleaning them up. Let's drop that back in. Drop that back in there. All I need to do is oil these. So I'll just clean up the wheels and put them back in. So to clean the wheels quickly, I'm just loading them one at a time into my little lathe here. So that way I can just turn that on. Use the block first. Get rid of most of the thick stuff. Then take the buffing wheel. So I'll just do the same thing for the rest of them. Okay, so that goes there, and there. Drop that in there. Making sure those washers are on the outside. And that goes there. And now I think I can snap this down over it. There, finally got that snapped together. They definitely made the trucks easier to assemble later on. Not with this design, but with the one that they still use now. But that does seem to be turning freely. That's good. There's the reassembled chassis. Everything seems to be working fine. So I'll just stick these weights on here, take this over to the track. It takes off nice and smooth. Aside from a couple wobbly wheels, this seems to be working pretty well. Okay, with that chassis finished now and the front coupler removed, I'll just snap the shell back down over the top. Put the coupler back on. And there's another one all finished and ready to run. Alright, so next up we've got another Athearn F7. But this one uses the classic belt drive system, which sold a lot more than the gear drive since it was a lot cheaper. Well, this one does still have some rubber bands on it, and it looks like they're definitely replacements from the originals because those would have long been dried up and cracked and gone. We'll see if these are good enough to actually work because they do feel a little bit loose, even if they do still have their flexibility. The motor seems to be turning freely, so that's good. And all the rubber bands are turning in the correct direction from the look of it. Yeah, I barely have to touch that to stop it, so with those rubber bands, it's not going to be good for more than maybe a few cars. Everything else is working well though, so this is going to be an easy fix. And I keep a whole bunch of these Athearn rubber bands on hand, so I think I'll just use all new ones here. Get this into top working condition. There is a bit of old oil and some remnants of the old rubber bands on here, so I'm just going to take a little alcohol here and clean that off real quick. Wheels are just getting the usual quick cleaning with the lathe. Now, when reassembling these trucks, what you want to do first is put just a little drop of oil inside each one of these bearings. Make sure there's no excess on there. Drop in an axle. Put the rubber band on that. Slip that in place. Then put the top screw back in. Reconnect the screw with the wire. And now this is ready to go back on. Slips onto the post there. I think Athearn did usually include some kind of a fiber bushing to press onto there, but the tension from the rubber bands is still enough to hold the truck on even if that bushing's gone. Just to pull that up and around the shaft. Gotta make sure that these are all in the same direction. Stick that back on. And do the same for the other truck. So now I can put this back into the chassis. Reconnect those tubes. Get the screw for the wire back in. And for the shafts here, just one small drop in each one. I'll wipe around there real quick too. So one thing about these is that you want to make sure there is absolutely no excess that can get to those rubber bands. Okay, that all looks good. It's running along nice and smooth. Only little issue I noticed was sometimes when it's going over the switch, sometimes one of the wheels can derail. Like that. So I think I'll try putting on some new bushing pieces down here, see if that helps. Okay, so to make those new bushings, I'm using this large, kind of heavy grade Tygon tubing. So I just push this onto those bottom tabs. Use some pliers to get that down the rest of the way. So it has a tight hold on there, but there's still just a little bit of play in the trucks. So I'll snap the shell back on, give that another test, and I think it'll be good to go. Well, it is better than before. I do still get a derailment now and then, going backwards over the switch. It was a pretty nice runner overall. You can definitely see why these were so popular for so long. Cheap, easy to maintain, smooth, and reliable electrical pickup. Now we've got an early Pinline F7, which actually used the same Globe Models body as Athearn, so that's why it looks the same as the Athearn. This one did have an unfortunate encounter with the packaging while it was being sent over, so I don't know if I'll be able to fix that to the point of looking decent. I think I've got all the parts down there, but if I can't fix that, then I do have an alternative shell that I think I can use. Yeah, it's got the little tag on there, says it runs, but I know it can still use a tune-up. So these early Pinline models, they're really heavy. They have a lot of weight over the rear truck, since that's the only one that's driven. Got a Pitman motor inside, or at least Pitman style. Yeah, that looks like lead there. And then that has a spring, a pretty heavy spring, going to the rear truck. I've had one of these before that I fixed up, and it was actually a pretty nice runner, so I expect the same from this one. So that's 2 screws on the bottom. Whole bottom plate with the coupler comes off, And yeah, there's a lot of old grease in there, so tuning this up is definitely the right choice. And these are also the Globe Models side frames that are used on their dummy units. So it's definitely easy to find replacements for those in case they ever get lost. And they just used one long single worm through the entire thing. I am removing the motor now that the shaft is loose there. I should just be able to slip the whole thing out. And as I'm looking at this, looks like this might actually be the same as the Athearn rubber band drive truck. So Pinline used a lot of the existing and available parts and just came up with their own chassis casting and rear truck. Now that truck is loose. And the motor slips right out. That makes it a lot easier to get to that worm shaft for cleaning. Okay, I got that truck cleaned up and everything seems to be working nice and smooth. Okay, the chassis is all put together and I think that'll work just fine. So before I put the shell on and give that a track test, well, first I'm going to see if I can fix this shell. Well, as it turns out, there's a chunk missing out of there that I didn't find. So I guess I can't really fix this shell too well. And of course there's that crack going up the side, so... Well, I'll see if I can get the other shell to work on there. Alright, so the other shell that I had on hand was this old Bachmann FTA. And the fit on the chassis was actually a lot better than I expected, so I just filed off the tabs here, put in some new ones made of brass wire, that's all it needs. And that fits right down on top. Snaps in place, both sides. And the Bachmann FTAs have never had the correct truck spacing anyway, so I think using it on this chassis can be forgiven. So let's just give this a quick run on the layout and then get on to the next model. And there it goes. It's certainly not the quietest runner, but it seems to have plenty of power behind it. The light still works. You can see it through the lens. Electrical pickup isn't perfect, but it's kind of to be expected with these four-wheel systems. I might add a wiper to that front truck real quick, because I think that's where some of the electrical issues are coming from. So if I just solder it real quick to the bottoms of those two screws, then that should hold in place just fine. And now next up is another old Pinline. This one has the same chassis as the last one, so I expect the repair process and tune-up to be the same as before, so unless I come across something interesting along the way, I think we can just skip ahead to the end result. And there it goes. This one really didn't need much work at all. Just a quick cleaning, a little fresh oil and grease. That one's actually working really nicely. No problems in either direction. And now right here, we've got a first run lifelike F7. These are quite a bit different from the ones that are most common, in that these have 8-wheel drive with an open frame motor and a universal going through the fuel tank. Same shell though. So the shell is off. It's got a weight in the center, a bit of weight over the front truck to make it even with the rear truck. Untwist these wires real quick just to give myself some room to work. Okay. Let's see, it looks like this is a 4-wheel electrical pickup system, and the truck is held in place by this clip. Yeah, it comes out just like that. Very similar design to the old Varney trucks, which kind of makes sense considering that most of Lifelike's early tooling came from Varney. All of the shell actually came from Pinline, I believe, or it might have been developed after Lifelike also got what was left of Pinline. So the truck bottom plate is the same one that's used on the rest of their standard line, at least for the unpowered trucks on later ones. Those are some really large gear teeth in there. Really fine teeth on the motor gear and transfer gearing, but really huge teeth on the truck and in the worm design. I don't know if that made it cheaper or what, but very interesting anyway. Oh, and that gear is just slipping on there. Or no, wait, that's the worm that's slipping. Well, it might have a little crack in it. We'll see. Alright, so after cleaning it up, I did find that this worm has a split in it. Looks like it's right where the mold line was, because these are molded gears, not cut. So I'll see if I can find some way to fix that, maybe glue it in place. Hopefully it won't cause any rough running. An interesting thing about the construction of these trucks, the side frames and main piece, they are all one part, so it definitely makes it a lot cheaper to manufacture. So this here is the electrical wiper. It just had a screw holding it in place. It's a bit messy, so I'll just clean that up real quick, and then I can start putting that back together and see how things are working. Okay, so I have the worm glued in place, and the other one actually already has a little split forming too, so I gave it a bit of glue to make sure nothing slips out. It seems like everything's working fine. Well, needs the plate on there to actually hold that shaft in place, but looks like things are okay. Okay, I put in the last bit of grease for the gears, and everything seems to be working fine. Not exactly the smoothest, but I think that'll still be good enough. It should be a pretty dependable runner, I would think. Okay, so the front truck was more of the same. Just had to clean it up and fix the worms in there because they were starting to crack too. But they seem to be working fine, so I've got it all put back together. Things soldered back in place, cleaned up the wheels. So let's see how this does on the track. Okay, I cleaned up the shell and snapped that back on. And it works. It's definitely not a very smooth runner. Got some noise and wobble there. Not much that can be done to fix that without new wheels and new gears and a new motor. Possibly new trucks and a new frame. Maybe even a new shell. But it does work. Well, on to the next one. And now next, we've got this late model Pinline F7, which you may notice is made from the same molds as the Lifelike F7. So I believe that this one was actually developed after Lifelike had purchased what was left of Pinline and the metal side of the tooling went to Bowser. So this shell was probably developed as a Pinline shell, but then they decided to just change the whole brand over to Lifelike. So the repair for this one should be the same as the last one. There are just a couple slight differences here. This motor is an actual Pitman motor instead of the cheaper one used in the Lifelike brand. And let's see, it's got this screw-in cap here for the headlight wire. I'm not sure if that's actually original or not. And the headlight bulb, instead of being truck mounted, is held in place by a clip inside of the shell. The rest of it appears to be exactly the same. So I thought the trucks would be the same inside and out, but check this out. The gears have a lot more teeth on them with a finer pitch. They're riding in a metal plate. And below that plate, well, that's got a wire soldered to it, so I can't really take it out. but it has metal worms riding in bronze bushings from the look of it. So this is quite a bit better than the version that was sold under the Lifelike name. And it's definitely still from the same molds and all for a lot of it, but they definitely cheapened things along the way. Okay, that's all put back together now. And I decided not to show the rest of it, just since the repair process really was about the same as the Lifelike one. Just has those advantages of the better quality gears and metal bearings, and that whole bearing support plate. So let's get this light bulb snapped back into here. So first I thought that maybe this was developed under Lifelike's control, but seeing the differences in quality, it may actually be that Pinline was developing this before they were purchased, and then Lifelike just cheapened everything later. Okay, let's see how this one runs. That is a really big difference from the Lifelike one. Speed control's better, it's a lot quieter. Electrical pickup isn't the best. Kind of like the Lifelike one, having 4 tires and 4 electrical wheels. It's kind of hard to keep good contact at all times. Overall, that's really not bad. And now next up, we've got this classic unit from Mantua, Tyco. There's a couple chips around the paint here, and there's also a dummy unit that matches this one, so if that one looks better, I might swap the 2 shells. But anyway, it's got the classic MU2 power truck, and this is riveted shut, so I can't really do much about getting in there to clean it up, but I'll do what I can at least. Same for this one. I think that's riveted closed. Maybe it's screws, I'm not sure, but either way, that shouldn't need more than just a cleaning of the brass wheels. And these are real easy to take apart. Just have to remove the fuel tank first. I mean, technically you can try to take the trucks out before this, but it's a lot easier if that's taken out first, because then you have room to pull the wires out, like this. So it's a lot easier to access everything. Now powering this up real quick, I'm glad to see that it's actually still in good working condition. I think I just need to put a little bit of oil in a couple places. Maybe I can push a little bit of fresh grease into the gears, but beyond that, I don't think it'll really need much work at all. Alright, so as it turns out, the dummy unit from this same time period did not have the slots in back for snapping in a rear truck, so I had to keep the motor in this one. It still doesn't look bad overall, just a couple chips here and there. Seems to be working just fine. Doing all right with electrical pickup too. Nice and smooth, pretty quiet. Now getting onto a steam engine, we've got this Mahano 462. I think this one may have been sold in an IHC tan box, so kind of an earlier unit from before they added the separate handrails and flywheel inside. This one is supposedly non-working, and after looking around, I see the reason for that is that there is no motor. So I think all I'm going to have to do here is add in a good motor, and it should be a decent runner. How to get into these, there's a screw at the front, and then a screw in the back. That should allow me to lift the shell off. There it goes. So yeah, it's real easy to get into these. Still have the terminals for the old motor, so it must have just been ripped out of there and thrown away. I don't know if it was just bad or what. but let's see what I can find that'll fit in there. Alright, so after going through a couple different options, I found the FK130SH motor here was a good fit and seems to have the right kind of speed and torque to drive this thing, so all seems to be working smoothly. So now I think I can just clean out a little bit of old grease, add some fresh oil, and this should be ready to run. Almost forgot, before I get this thing back on the track, I did discover that there is something rattling in the tinder, so I want to see what that is. The shell just snaps onto there, and it looks like there might be, no screw in the front, that's just for the drawbar. Okay, so carefully, okay, so it looks like there's a backup light in here. And that nut is for the rear truck screw. That also helps to power that light. Good thing I checked in there. Looks like it still works. All right, let's see how this thing runs. And before I started up, I also found out that there is a smoke unit in the smokestack there, but I couldn't get into it without breaking some glue on the shell. But as long as it runs well, I think that's what's most important in this case. So let's get this going. Seems to be doing pretty well. Headlight works. You see the reverse light on the tinder. It its full speed with that new motor. This has four-wheel electrical pickup, just the front and rear drive wheels, so not quite the best electrical pickup, but seems to be doing well enough. So I'd say this turned out to be an overall really nice runner. Now right here we have an AHM DDT switcher, and this one actually came to me from one of my viewers. I did some work for him, and the amount that I charged, he felt like the work I did was worth more than that, so he paid me with some of his old trains in addition to the regular payment, so thank you again for that. This looks like it's in good shape overall, just needs a simple cleaning. Wheels need a little cleanup, some fresh grease. Getting inside of these things is really easy. It's just the one screw on top. These old AHM four-wheel switchers, which have also been sold by Bachmann and Model Power, they're all built basically the same way. One screw through the top, and then you lift off the body, find weights inside, motor in back. The AHM ones have the big motor, and then the later ones from Model Power and Bachmann, they'll have a cheaper can motor inside. A little piece of foam for each of those lead weights. This one has the 3-pole motor. Looks like there's still enough brush material left in there. So yeah, all this needs is just a simple cleanup, and I think this will run perfectly fine. And as for getting the rest of it apart, one screw on the bottom for this chassis plate. Oh wait, not one screw. 3 screws for the chassis plate, not one. That also holds the couplers. At first it looked like the couplers were each held in by their own little box, but nope, it's all one plate. Wheels lift out. There are the sprung contacts inside of there. And just the 2 more screws that hold the motor in place. And those are out of there. Then just take out these contact clips from the motor. and that's it. It's now fully disassembled. Okay, the chassis is done and back together. Everything's ready to go. Seems to be working nicely. And I was about to add in the light bulb when I realized there is actually no headlight lens on here, so that was actually never in there in the first place. So I'll just clean up the shell and this one will be done. Gotta give it a quick test run, of course. And it's moving along just fine. May not be much for low speed control, but it can still run at a decently slow pace, so that's really not bad. Now for what will likely be the most unique model in this video, I have this Play Art European Electric. I think it might be a Swedish model. The outside shape is overall pretty good. It's just missing one of these two pantographs. I might see about maybe printing out a replacement, I don't know. But anyway, let's get inside and see what this is all about. So at least it's easy to get in there. Blue plastic for the windows. Little piece missing, but that shouldn't cause any problems. That, however, does look like a problem. Broken wire. And that front truck snaps in. The latches are a little bit weak though. I'll just unsolder all these wires for now and pull this power truck out. What even holds the power truck in there? I don't see anywhere that a clip would attach on there. Except maybe these screw holes? I don't know. I don't see anything broken either. So I wonder if it's just supposed to snap in and let the motor hold on. Those tabs at the front and back keep it from going out of place, kind of. At least while it's running. Well, I don't know. Now, before I take it apart, does this work at all? This Play Art also made the 260 and let's see, I think a couple of the 040s for the standard line lifelike. So, not exactly the best units out there. Seems to be working though. Now, as for how to get inside, well, it does look like it's missing two tires, and then the others are just about ready to go. Okay, there goes that. Now I should be able to get inside. There and there. Anything else? Nope. This comes right apart. Okay. So really a pretty standard gear setup. I don't think there's much to do besides just adding some fresh oil and getting things freed up a little, because I feel some tightness in there. Well, while I was pulling things apart here, the last two tires cracked, so I have some new ones on order. They should be here soon. These little chips, I'll just throw those away. Nothing left to do there. Now, as for the gears, a couple of them seem to have a slightly too tight fit to the shaft in the truck, so what I'm going to do is just have a slightly too small drill bit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of run this back and forth like that to open up the hole a little more. There, now that's turning nice and free, just as it should. Make sure the others are also turning correctly. Feeling a little resistance there. No real cleanup to do in here because there's really only a tiny bit of oil, so now I can start putting it back together. So the motor just goes back in there, like that. Bit of fresh oil for all the bearings. That just snaps back into there. Like that. I can't finish reassembling the truck until I have the replacement tires, but I can at least test things out a little bit. Everything seems to be working nice and smooth. The front truck was easy to pull apart. All I had to do was release the tab there, and then the whole thing came off just like the rear truck. Now to make sure that stays in place, because this isn't really working very well, I'm just gonna stick this piece of metal in here. I found that that prevents it from coming out of there, so that should work just fine. I'll just put a touch of glue on here and then clip off the excess. Just keeping it in there tighter. Still possible to pull it out with some twisting and force, but it's staying in place, so that should really be just right for this. And the last motorized unit from the table is this GE switcher from AHM. Uses the same chassis as the DDT, and it was basically in new shape when I bought it, aside from some little breaks in the handrails. And I have all those pieces on hand in the original box, but this was sold as non-running, so let's see what's up with it. Okay, so it was just a disconnected wire. I resoldered that, and it took right off. I do see, however, that the left side brush is actually missing the carbon brush piece, so that just has the metal strip directly contacting the commutator. So I need to take that one out and see if there's something I can do to fix that. Looking at that wear pattern, I don't think the brush was ever there in the first place. They just totally forgot it. Okay, so here's what I put together. I have this brush off of that failed Pico motor. I filed down the sides slightly and glued it down, and then soldered this piece of wire going into there to make sure that it maintains electrical contact. So let's see if that works. Well, certainly unconventional, but it actually worked. Well, you can see I've got the handrail glued back on, so details are fixed, although it's still a little fragile just because of the way these are molded. And I've been testing this back and forth quite a bit just to make sure that brush is going to hold up. And so far, there seem to be no problems. So it looks like that whole improvised system worked. So all 4 of the original traction tires are cracked off and gone. So I've got some new ones from Calumet, if that's how you pronounce their name anyway. I don't know. So I'll just kind of stretch them over like that, the tips of these pliers. Get them in place, and then just use my nail to work it into the groove. And this should work just fine. So for the system that they have to hold the truck in, it's really not a very good one. It's easy for it to fall out of there. I kind of looked for a way to modify that and make it a little better, but I'm not sure if there's really much a way I can do that without doing some heavy modification to this, so I'm just going to leave that alone. It still stays in there. It's not like it's going to just fall straight out. The motor's width keeps it in place, so you just have to make sure that it's in there while you're putting it on the track, and then it's fine. Okay, there it is, all finished and put back together. And you can see that I remade the missing detail parts, like this pantograph here. It's a combination of 3D printed parts and wire. This piece here, that's actually just a piece of red wire. I was looking at photos of other models that didn't have that missing, and looks like that's all it was on them, so that's what I made it out of this time. And then these buffers back here, those are replacements. I think it all turned out looking pretty good. Let's see how it runs. Takes off nice and strong. I wouldn't exactly call this the smoothest runner though, it's got some wobble to it. I thought I really expected much more with it being play art. But that does at least work. Seems like it's better going forward than reverse. But there it is. And with that play art model finished, that is everything. Or is it? Now the next one I'll be looking at from that extra round of models is this Bachmann F9. This one does not have the 8-wheel drive chassis, just the 4-wheel drive. And that is very interesting. I'm gonna be honest, I have never seen this drive unit before. So apparently they made a different 4-wheel drive unit before they even developed the pancake motor. That's very interesting. And I wonder if this thing runs. All electrical pickup is from the front truck from the look of it. I only see wipers there. This looks like a can version of the motor that they did use in the 8-wheel drive units with the metal chassis. Actually, I think they also used this motor in their first 060T. And it does run. The motor kind of wobbles on the truck. Oh, I'll be interested to pull this apart and see how that all works. But at least it does work. So the wires are connected with these terminals that go onto the screws for the brush holders. If you're really careful, you can take out the screw from the terminal and then put it back in to make sure the brush doesn't come out of place. But if the brush holder does come out of place, you can just take the springs off, get things back where they need to go, and then screw it all back together. Now, looking at this, I think this just snaps off with a little push. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so there's the drive unit. Bachmann early 4-wheel drive. No snap-on cover here either, it's screwed on. Okay. Well, it looks a lot like the Rivarossi type drive unit and also the Mahano-made C-liners. Now, I do remember now that Cater, Bachmann's parent company, also made the FTA for AHM, so maybe they originally developed this drive truck for the AHM models and then started using it on the Bachmann brand. Oh, at this point I'm only guessing. Okay, so as it turns out, it's a somewhat loose press fit. It's just tight enough to hold things in place, and there are a couple metal washers in there to help it slip a little more and not get bound up too tightly. So that at least allows me to get in and add some oil to the motor bearings. The motor seems to be a good runner, so I don't think there's much I need to do with it. It seems to be taking off just fine. I do see a pretty strong wobble from it though. So I'm going to check on the wheels and see if I can do anything to correct that. Okay, after making some slight adjustments, I think I've got it about as smooth as I can get it. It's never going to be perfect just because of the traction tires, as well as some of the chassis design. I'd say that's overall not bad. And at some speeds, the wobble is almost completely unnoticeable. So I think that came out pretty well. And now right here we've got an AHMC liner, which could definitely use a good cleaning. The body's not exactly in perfect shape. Horns are broken. There's some scuffs around it. But with the cleaning, it shouldn't look too bad. For now, let's see what I can do to get it running as well as possible. This is the same version that I fixed up in another video a little bit earlier. 3-pole motor. At least everything seems to be turning. Power that on real quick. See if it works. And that took right off. But it definitely needs oil. Well, at least this should be an easy one from the look of it. Maybe I spoke a little too soon about the easy part, at least for the motor. Both of those brushes are 100% worn down. So maybe there's something else I can do here. Well, even I get tired of fixing every old motor. Let's see how it does with a new one. Well, looks like that worked. Well, that's certainly a lot more low profile than the old motor. And the shell looks a whole lot better after a quick cleaning. So let's get this back on here. Take it to the track and see how it runs. It's not bad. It's a lot quieter than the old motor. Certainly a lot more efficient. The alignment may not have been perfect, which is where some of the roughness is coming from. Overall, I'd say that this is an alright runner. And now we've got the more modern variety of Lifelike F7 with the plastic chassis and 4-wheel pancake motor drive. A bit of weight in there. Yeah, the truck still snaps in fine. It's just when it turns to that angle, it pops out pretty easily. So I'll leave that in for now. So that's red in front and blue in back on this one. And to get the motor truck out, they're just these two tabs. Push one in, and then the other one. And down it drops. Yeah, that motor runs perfectly fine, so this should need very little done to it. I'll go ahead and disassemble it anyway, just so that I can get some of the old grease and oil cleaned out. Yeah, it's not moving very easily, so definitely needs a good cleaning. Come on. Okay, that's working pretty free now. I also found that one of these middle gears actually had a little bit of plastic flash stuck between two of the teeth, so I just had to real carefully carve that out with my X-Acto knife here until that was all gone and cleared out. And that helped it to work more smoothly. No binds at all. All four of the original tires are long gone. Of cracked off and dried out, so just putting some new ones on here. All right, chassis back together. And I was having some electrical issues with the rear truck, so while I was cleaning it up, I pulled the contacts out and found that neither one of the wires had been correctly soldered. The bronze pickups were tarnished at the time that they tried to do the soldering, so all it did was just kind of scorch the metal, and the solder was just barely hanging on, so that broke off real easy, but a bit of cleanup and flux fixed that, so this should be as reliable as can be now, at least as reliable as four-wheel electrical pickup can get. Cleaned up the shell, so that looks pretty nice. The only issue is the front decal has mostly chipped off now. That's just a water slide decal, so it'll be pretty easy to just remove the rest of that and replace it with a new one. I'd say that overall turned out pretty good. Actually, it's probably an even better runner than the old 8-wheel drive unit. Really, the only issue with it all is that chipped front decal, but like I said before, that can be removed and replaced pretty easily. So that just leaves one left to fix. Last up is an AHM GP18. Now this is the same as the Bachmann GP18 that I fixed up in another video a while back. After looking over it, the only real difference I can find is that this one has 4-wheel electrical pickup instead of 8. So if you want to see a more detailed repair of one of these, you can check out that video. But anyway, this looks like it's in nice shape. Just needs a clean up, quick tune up. I think it'll be ready for the track. Okay, I'm just about done here. And I did have to replace the headlight bulb. The old one was burned out. I also found out that the motor's armature was really off balance, so I pulled it apart. You can see that I drilled a few balancing holes in the side of a couple of the poles, and that's helped quite a bit to reduce the vibration and make it quieter. Well, all that's left now is just the last bit of cleanup and fresh oil, and this will be ready for the track. Okay, here it goes. These motors never really have smooth takeoffs. Once you get them running, they're actually not bad. This one's going along just fine. Now this time I really do have everything finished and ready. So all of these models will be available for sale at the Springfield, Illinois Train Fair on Sunday, March 12th. I'll be running a table there with a couple family members to assist, and I'll have a circle of working track to show that everything is in good working order. I'll also have some other freight cars and other odds and ends for sale, so if you're interested in any of these and are within the area, feel free to stop on by. And for anything that doesn't sell, well, I'll be sure to put that up onto eBay later, and I'll be sure to put links to any of those within my community tab on my channel. So for future videos of this series, I'll be doing individual models most of the time, and we'll be putting those up for online sale. But that'll be all for this video, so I hope to see some of you at the train fair.